Hi, it's Phil and Rosalie Furler, Sunshine Coast, Queensland, Australia. And welcome to another wonderful morning here on the beach, and of course the Word of God to build you up. Have a great day. We're going to continue on this morning with faith to live by. In the book of Romans chapter 10 and verse 17 it says, "Now faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the Word of God." And in the Word of God there are so many precious promises for mankind, especially for you today. There's promises that'll help you in life. You may hear one of these promises through a preacher, you may receive it through a prophetic utterance, or you may be reading the Word of God and God just quickens something to you. But no matter how you receive a quickened word from God, I can guarantee that you are going to be tested on it. You're going to be tried on it. The Apostle Peter said that the testing of our faith is more precious than gold itself. So this morning we're going to continue on with Hebrews 11 and the man Abraham, because he received so many precious promises from God. In Genesis chapter 15 and verse 5, God took Abraham out one night when it was so beautiful, the sky was full of stars. He said, "Look up, if you can count those stars. Look how many stars are in the heaven, so shall your descendants be." He said to Abraham, "In your seed shall all the nations of the earth be blessed." Of course, Abraham was about 100 years old and his wife was a little bit younger, and they're both barren. They've tried to have children for so long, couldn't have any, but God gave them a promise. In the book of Romans in chapter 4 and verse 19 it says that Abraham considered not his own body. In verse 20 it says he did not waver at the promises of God through unbelief. And even though that there was no hope in himself to have this promise fulfilled, he, against all hope, believed God and continued to believe God that he who promised was faithful to perform the promise. And by faith Sarah conceived, and they had a little baby called Isaac. And of course they would have loved little Isaac. But as Isaac grew, God spoke to Abraham and said, "Take that which you love, your only son, Isaac, and offer him as a sacrifice unto me." But we know the story. As Abraham was about to plunge the knife into Isaac, God provided a ram for him. And so his faith was really tested. And of course sometimes we get a special promise from God and we get so excited about it, we begin to meditate upon it, and it can change our life forever. But I guarantee that you're going to have a test of your faith in that promise. Just think about Job for a while. In the book of Job in chapter 23 and verse 10, Job went through some amazing testings and trials in his life, and yet he came to the conclusion that he said, "Even after I'm tested and tried," he said, "I will come forth as pure gold." If you're going through some trials in your life and some testing, never get discouraged, because there is a purpose in God. As a matter of fact, the Apostle James says in chapter 1 and verse 2, he says, "My brethren, count it all joy when you fall into various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces patience." Now this word patience means endurance and perseverance. And verse 4 says, "But let patience have its perfect work, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking nothing." What a wonderful promise. Day to day, even if you're going through some deep water or maybe a fiery trial, we've got to remind ourselves of the promises that God has given us. And sometimes we have to remind God, not that he forgets, but just remind him of the promises also that he has given us. So let's remain steadfast, unmovable in the faith. Hang on to the promises of God, knowing that he who has promised can bring them to pass.